Good evening. This is the Athens City Shade Tree Commission meeting for February 11th, 2021. We have no tree permit or right-of-way issues, and I don't have any landscape or landscape ordinance issues. I see that David Riggs has joined us. I don't know if you can tell us, David, if there's any plans coming our way in the next month or so.
Hello, everybody. Yes, just today I got 2 Title 41 permits for Kershaw Drive and Thompson Place, and those are the new residential developments that were just recently annexed. So we should be seeing those probably within the next 30 days.
We'd like to get them if we're going to be at our next meeting a week before, if we could.
Actually, I'll try to get them out to you all tomorrow, so you can review it. There are 2 developments, so there's a lot to look at. And actually, I just got them today, so I haven't had a chance to look at them at all. But I'll send you the links to both of those plans, so we'll have plenty of time to look at it.
Okay, very good. Very good. Anything else you want to tell us about at all?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, very good. In that case, we can roll on to the maintenance of the tree canopy and the plans. I haven't done any more with the plans than what we see in the minutes of the last meeting. The plan now is, I guess, in 3 parts. It's identification of sites, the maintenance, and then the planting piece.
David, who keeps track of the empty spots where trees have fallen and need to be replaced?
The Service Safety Director's office keeps track, I think, of the ones where they've removed trees. But I don't have a list from them as to what has been removed. Did the one come down from last time?
Not yet, no.
No, it's. I believe it's very close because I saw an email exchange where I think it said one of the contractors had got some time to do it, and so they were moving it up on the list. So it should take place in the next week or so, I think.
Okay. Well, I don't remember having that many discussions about it, so I don't know whether they report all of them to us or are they.
All trees that require a tree permit come to us, or come to me at least, and I try to put them on the agenda just as a reminder of what's going on. But if somebody goes straight to the Service Safety Director and it's an emergency to remove the tree, if the tree's fallen over, well, there is no tree permit. The city just deals with the removal. And they may or may not tell me that that's happened.
So there may not be any log then?
No.
Kept.
No.
So the idea that all trees that come down are replaced is probably not true.
Well, as I say, the Service Safety Director's office is supposed to keep track of those things. And certainly when Ron Lucas was in that office, he assured me that we planted trees in places where we removed trees. And if you looked at the Tree City USA report, you would see that the number of trees being planted exceeded the number that were being removed.
I remember he did that. He'd tell us at the meeting usually.
Yeah.
But he's not doing that anymore.
No. Anne, would you like to say something?
So, can you guys hear me?
Yep. No, you need to turn your microphone on again. It just turned off.
Am I good?
Yes.
No, you're good.
Okay, sorry about that. I would suggest that somebody on the commission be, that be delegated as a commission duty, because I think that's where we've missed out a lot in the past years of not replacing what's been removed.
What are you suggesting that duty consists of?
Simple database. I mean, just driving around.
No. I can keep track of data, but I do that now. I keep track of the ones I know about, but how do I make sure that I'm told? Mm-hmm. I mean, if we have any of the commissioners sort of assigned to do this, there's no guarantee we're going to be told. That was the missing link that Nancy just identified.
Well, I think if the goal, if the reason you have this list is to try to replace canopy you're losing, is that the goal for it?
Well, the idea was simply to maintain a list of where trees had been removed.
Okay. So it wasn't necessarily to put new ones back.
Well, we could be putting new ones back if there was space there for them. Yeah.
I mean, I think if that's one of your charges is to help reestablish canopy, surely looking at what's been removed, you can put back, but there's so many open spots.
Yes. The thing Nancy was addressing was how do we get to know when the city removes a tree? And my answer was, I only know about the ones that involve tree permits. If a tree falls down in the street, I don't hear about it. To paraphrase a famous saying, because the city doesn't always tell us that they have to remove a tree.
So is the guy that's is a Chicky? Is that his name?
Yeah, Andrew Chicky. Yeah.
Would he know? Do you think?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, maybe I can ask him if he keeps what log he keeps, and if he can just every 3 months just send me a copy of it or something like that.
That was going to be my suggestion, David. Just formalize it. Just say every 3 months on these 4 dates we expect a report.
I can't do that. I'm a volunteer for the city. I don't have any authority.
I don't mind asking Andrew to do it. I
can ask. I can't require. You said require. I can't require him to do it. I can ask him to do it.
I think that if you ask him and it is formalized in our minutes that we've asked him, I think that will help.
Okay. Okay, I'll make a note of that here. Plans.
Andrew may not even know that that's something that would be good for him to do, so.
Well, I want to talk to him anyway about, I'd like to find out how we could get some pricing on a contractor to do maintenance in the city on the trees, because I don't think there's any sign of the city workers doing any of this work at all. And so in terms of developing a plan, we know what it costs to plant trees roughly. We can identify sites and so on. The bit that's missing at the moment is the planning it's not the planning, it's the maintenance aspect of the trees. And coming up with a cost for, I don't know, crown lifting 20 to 50 trees a year or something.
By the way, Anne, do you know Roxanne? She joined us last month.
Yep. We're email buddies.
Awesome.
I asked lots of questions.
Thank you for your service. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, so while we're on the planning topics, are there anything else that we should be thinking about?
Well, I just wanted to bring up a point, and that is, it was my understanding that the safety service director will only remove trees if they are an imminent threat. So if it looks like it's hazardous, so those are the trees that they remove, and they don't have to come to us. Is that still true, David, do you think?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they're supposed to consult with us when a tree is not an imminent hazard, and obviously if a tree falls over, well, they certainly don't bother consulting us on those. But on the ones like 141 Morris Avenue, where the adjacent owner reported a problem, and I looked at it, that involved a tree permit, and that's more typical of where the tree commission comes in, because I made a recommendation to the city about it, and they agreed. It needs to be removed.
So is this a place where we could talk about the draft of the new ordinance?
Let's do that under other business.
Okay.
So let's finish talking about planning for the moment, and then we'll move on to the next item, which is other business. I just got one announcement under that, and then we can talk about those documents that I circulated.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the planning, we talked briefly, or I'm not sure where it ended actually, about dividing up the city in some way and finding a ways of counting spots where trees could be considered for not replacement, for new trees.
Yeah, we can do that. One thing that we can think about is which areas are easiest for us personally to look at. Roxanne lives on the south side, so that would make sense for her to be looking in, not necessarily the whole of the south side, but part of it. I'm in the Near East side, so that's an obvious one for me.
I'm Far East side.
You're Far East side, and Leah's up on the hill.
And David.
With David, so we've got plenty of coverage up there.
Where do you live, James?
You're muted.
Unmute is. I don't know these names, so I'm new to the city. So I'm guessing as where these places are. But I live by Kindred Market, back behind that.
Oh,
I think that's the Near East side, isn't it?
Near East. Okay, so now I'll know.
Yeah, but actually that's an interesting one, because that's on the other side of East State Street from where I am. And that
you can divide up the area.
Oh yeah, I mean we can.
And Peter's there too, aren't you, Peter?
Yeah.
David, I have a question.
Yes.
To me, it seems, does it make sense for us to compile a list of places where we can plant trees if the city doesn't have the budget to plant them or maintain them?
Well, we're starting to make a plan, Roxanne.
Well,
so that someday when we have money, we might be able to do it.
But I guess if I knew, for example, Nancy, that we had budget to plant and maintain 40 trees, that would be different than if they said 5, We
typically have 20 trees planted. That's the number I seem to remember. And what we said, I think a few meetings back, is that in a plan we should have a target. And I think I said that we should aim to plant at least 20 more trees than we remove every year. And so that again gives the city an idea of the sort of budget that we need.
So how many do we replace usually, do you think?
It varies a lot. I mean, with the emerald ash borer, we've been taking out probably more trees than we've actually planted in some years. But I think overall, we certainly, when Ron Lucas was there, we tried to maintain the number as a minimum. And
he would write grants.
Yeah, and occasionally there would be a grant, or there would be a project like the Richland Avenue one. I think that has some trees in it. I think the West Union Street project does, and so does the Stimpson Avenue project.
There was the Columbus Road.
Yeah, Columbus Road was another one. And so all of these are examples of where there are trees built into the project cost. But the issue again is we are not planning to maintain trees. We're planning to plant trees. And that was one of the things that Alan Swite pointed out, that you need
how many do you think we would go for to try to get ahead of the game?
Well, I said a number like 20 more than we remove.
But how many, we don't know how many we were going to remove. So
no. I recognise that, but we can't.
Well,
you just.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You said
I can't, Nancy. I can't give you a number. I don't know how many it is. But I'm saying that this. What I'd like to do is present the city with a plan that says, whatever you remove, add 20.
Okay, that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
and so I'm not in control of the money. It isn't my budget. I can only present them with a request. And
I was just trying to clarify, David, because you said you didn't know, and I said, how are we going to know if we don't know?
We don't. Yeah, we don't need to know. The city needs to know.
Yeah, right.
The city needs to know.
And the thing is,
go on, Lee.
Well, in a plan, you have to have like X plus 20, X representing the number of trees removed. We can work on how we get that number later, but that's the goal, and so, but we can't go to the city and say we want money to plant trees. They want to see a plan. They want to see a rationale. They want to see, what we're planning to do with it. So we have to start with a plan if we want to ask for a budget.
Yeah.
So our goal will be X plus 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to throw any wrenches anywhere, but I missed the last meeting. But before that, we were discussing needing to find homes for, I think, 272 trees that Menards had offered the city. What's the status of? Does that fit into this?
Well, that's not going anywhere at the moment until we get the money from Menards to do it, or Menards. Actually, the alternative is that they will plant trees in sites that we agree that they can plant trees in, and they may do that. But David Riggs was the one dealing with the negotiations on that. I don't know, David, are you still with us? If you want to comment on that one.
Yeah, I'm still here. That is correct. There are those trees that will be available once we decide the best location to plant those. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I can't remember the exact number up front, but there's a significant number of trees that they've agreed to plant for the city.
I think it was 272.
So David, are they waiting for us to identify sites then?
Yes, that's what I'd prefer to see. If we have a plan, a layout, what we'd like to see, and then we can present that to Menards and see if we can get them started.
Okay.
I have two questions. Do we know what type of trees they're willing to offer? That's the first question.
Well, we will basically tell them they have to be large shade trees, and we would prefer native trees.
Okay, so we can give them our preferences. Okay. And the second is to play devil's advocate and say, why plus 20, David?
It was a number out of the air.
Okay, well, I guess if I were the city, I would be like, wow, that sounds like you pulled that out of the air. I did. Look, I think maybe a percentage might make
percentage of
sense.
What? Percentage of what?
Percentage of trees that you are removing because you're going to assume that some of them are going to die, or you want to say that you're planting 120% of the trees that have been removed. Let's just say that's
okay. That could be another way of doing it.
Because you want to grow the number of trees. Yeah. I think you have to have a reason for the plus number.
Well, the plus number was coming about based on what I know the city's been able to afford in the past.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean,
back to that.
Because if I go putting in, let's say I put in 120%, and one year we remove 200 or 300 trees, the city may turn around and say, no, we can't afford to do it. Tough.
But the reason is that we want to have a sustainable canopy.
Yeah.
So there is a reason.
Yeah, and
I think
whether
that
it's
when we have the plan, we just have to justify the number, and I think
yeah, but I don't know whether. I'm not sure whether an arbitrary percentage is any better than me picking a number and adding it.
No, it might be that we stay with the number, David, but
Yeah.
I think we just have to have a rationale for it. And if we say, typically 100 trees are removed and 20 represents 20%, and, we're going to lose X percent due to death, and the rest we're just trying to grow our tree population.
Well, I seem to remember.
Reason.
Yeah, I seem to remember in prior to the Emerald Ash Borer, we only removed something like 10 to 20 trees a year. And so that my number was a significant increase on that basis. So that was where I was going with it. That what did I think the city could maybe afford in terms of tree?
So David Riggs, is there any kind of time frame that Menards is agreed to do this, or
There wasn't a specific time frame, but I would.
Are they ready to start now? I mean,
I would suggest that the sooner we do it, the more the easier it would be to get those trees. I think if we would wait 5 years or 10 years, it'd be very difficult to do it. So sooner the better, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Plus, it's seasonal when we're going to want to plant them.
And the other issue we need to be thinking about is the care of these trees as well, because that again is one of the issues that we don't really.
Well, maybe we could ask them to if we could do it in stages. So
well, we would. I mean, we wouldn't want to try planting 200 trees in one go.
Yeah.
Because we just couldn't we couldn't maintain that many.
So that brings us back to asking the mayor to give us some help with this, right?
But another thing that I think might help the city is if we don't dot 120 trees all over, the city, that we actually aggregate them in an area that would be easier to maintain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the thoughts is that there's a lot of space for trees along East State Street near Menards, and that may be a good site to try and put trees on. A few years ago we planted clusters of trees along there, and some of them have done quite well. And that again may be a good strategy for planting along there rather than have an avenue of evenly spaced trees.
I think that's a great idea.
We put in groups of trees.
Here's a follow-up to that plan. I think that's a great idea. What about if we have after that's so many trees, and then the next stage we'll have it in so many in the far east side, so many in the south side, so so that we move from area to area.
Yeah. But that gets back to the issue of identifying the sites.
Yes.
Is forgive my ignorance. Are we allowed to plant trees at the community center, or is that not our purview?
Yeah, anywhere within the city that is public property comes under us. However, we have to work through the Service Safety Director's office to get those sites approved by the city.
I'd really like to see the community center rip up the tennis courts and to plant trees there. Mm-hmm. That's been an issue for them, and that might motivate them to finally do it.
Yeah. The one thing we have to be careful of with that site is that the runways were left in place in many areas, and so there isn't the depth of soil that you need for trees. You've got to be very careful about where you try planting trees, or you've got to dig big holes through.
Don't people concrete. People don't use the tennis courts?
No, they are not usable anymore. The surface is cracked. The nets have been removed.
Oh, I never noticed.
And it's been a problem for the city. So turning it back.
I would rather they redo the tennis courts.
Yeah, I think that would be
that
good.
didn't seem to be in the plans, but I'd be fine with that too.
There are two catalpas next to the tennis court, and those came from my flower beds 100 years ago. I don't know when, but when I was young, I gave them to, I think, Kevin Swartzoff when he was, and they were just little pups, that. But another place, if we're making a loose list of tree planting sites, and again, I always say plant the easy sites first. West State Street Ball Diamond entrance just lost a bunch of trees due to an AEP, or if they haven't been cut down yet, they are going to be down.
They are supposed to be planting trees to replace the ones lost.
They did actually. They're not on the edge by the road. They are in the middle between the concession stand and the ball field, first ball field.
Great news. That's Jessica at work. She's awesome. I still contend if you go up West State Street through the public services buildings that are owned by the city and even across the road, it's really barren and there are wires. So we'd have to be creative, but I think, clusters of evergreens, some unconventional stuff would look better.
You are assigned to be the West Side person.
Seriously? I'll do it.
Yeah.
I think we also identified that the Far East Side needs the most tree planting.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
I think places where people walk is really important because we need to encourage people out walking. It's better for their neighborhood. It's better for
I agree
properties.
With that too.
Real estate, keeps the value, and so it's really important.
Yeah, I have a vested interest because I walk every day in this area, and I sure would like to have some more trees, especially when it gets to be about May.
Yeah.
I would also say that the south side lost a lot of the ash trees, and because we're on the hill, we're having a severe issue with erosion right now, and so we need some trees to hold the banks.
Yeah. So again,
would it be worth
identifying the sites on the south side would be a good thing to try and do.
Shall we try and do
a goal for next meeting? Sorry, Nancy, I think we were on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Maybe we should report, or if, I would love a partner to meet me out at West State Street and let's put together a little plan if somebody wants to help me do that.
Well, we've got a format that David used before. You just take the name of the street and drive down the street and stop every time you see an empty space. One tree for each each house is a start. And
it's low tech, but it works.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's low tech, but it works.
Yeah, it's low tech, right?
Yep.
And you just write the address down. So on like Avon Street is my street. Avon Street would have ones needed at the 7 and 9, 11, like that. It's very easy.
Well, it's easy when all the houses are numbered, as they are on the Far East Side and also where I live. But the area that Anne was describing, I think, is a little bit more of a challenge. In the residential areas on the west side, it's certainly possible. But once you get out of that ball field, identifying where to put trees there, I think it's a much more difficult one. It's a bit like the East State Street one. It's
well, maybe we could just get started and see how it works out.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just trying to describe for Anne that the basic approach is what you described, Nancy, of just a list of streets with the house numbers closest to where you think the site is, and just adding to the list that Albie and I started. But then we've got these other areas that, like East State Street or the West State Street parks, that are a little bit more difficult to describe in that way. And so it may need a bit more thought as to how a plan is actually written up for that. But certainly, we can put we've now got the list that Albie and I did. That's in the minutes from a couple of meetings ago. If people want to contribute lists for the next meeting or the one after, we can just receive them and put them into the minutes and keep a record there.
Lee's had her hand up for a little bit.
Okay.
Getting back to the maintenance, before Mason Chambers, who has planted trees, there's a contract with him, and he comes around and takes care of those trees for a year and will replace the trees that don't make it. And I don't know whether that contract is for 1 year, but that is something that a lot of cities do not do. And that is one of the reasons that they lose so many trees, because they don't have care for them in the first year.
Yep.
So where we fall down is more in the pruning, not in the watering.
Yeah, the problem, using Mason would be great, but he costs so much. I wanted a tree planted. He wanted $270 for one tree. I don't think we can afford that.
Well,
that's not far off the price that the city is placing, I think, on the $225 a tree. Is what they're looking at for that.
I think you'll find too that if you start to buy in volume and you start to be a consistent customer over years and years and decades, you'll start to get better quality contracting and also cheaper.
Yeah.
You'll start to want to compete. There's a lot of people that do landscaping, and I think we just have to develop good specifications and really tight ideas about what we want done. It probably could get that price down a little bit over time.
But if it includes maintenance, that's really important.
Well, this of course is the concern that we've got with the with the tree banking. That's a way to transfer the maintenance over to the city, and so that's why I'm always reluctant to think about tree banking unless we really have to do it.
David, I mean, a big problem that we have right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the city doesn't have a certified arborist now, or they don't have a certified arborist who actually is working in that position.
I'm not sure that that's a major problem. It's not stopping things happening.
But is it something that in our plan that we should state that the city should maintain a certified arborist on their staff?
This was one of the arguments that Alan Swikart got addressed in his talk. And it made me realize that trying to get the city to do any maintenance themselves is probably a bigger challenge just because of the sheer cost of people. Rather than, so what I'm thinking of, it's probably easier for them to let a maintenance contract of the order of $10,000 than it is to hire somebody. And so that's why I think going for contractors to do this work is the way I would like to go in terms of planning. And maybe if we get to a point where we're spending enough money, then they may think we should be doing this ourselves. But I think the first phase is to get a plan established that includes maintenance, and see where we can go with that. It's not going to be perfect the first time. We're going to have to keep on adjusting it.
I'm just curious, does anybody know what the training is like to become a certified arborist?
I can answer
Ann does.
Yeah, Ann does.
And Roxanne, one of my personal goals was to help. I mean, one of the things in my job is I try to get people to become certified arborists, whether, typically in the commercial end, but oftentimes, and one of my goals was to get some of the cities that are struggling in maintaining their urban trees, the idea that if they could get a certified arborist on staff, then all of a sudden this person would be an advocate and able to help when decisions are made. We're going to redo water lines in this neighborhood, and they would be like, wait, here's trees and here's other ways to do it. So far, I've been striking out. I mean, we have had a couple certified arborists within the city. I don't know, ran them off but now the latest thing that's happening is there are two guys that do have an interest in urban forestry. One is Kevin Skurlock, and the other guy is works underneath him. I cannot think of his name right now. I haven't got to meet him yet. They're going to attend the Ohio Tree Care Conference, the arborist training. It's all online this year. It's a good introduction to see if maybe they would be interested and if they can kind of fill that role in the city. It would be great. But, it has to be the right person that is willing to take this on with all their other duties and a clear chain of command. And it's proving to be a little bit more complicated than I originally thought.
Yeah, but so, Ann, just give me an idea. Is it like a week of training and then a number of hours of apprenticeship, or?
You have to have 3 years experience in the landscape tree care industry. So that, you worked at a nursery, you worked, or you have a 4-year degree, that kind of 2-year degree plus 1 year experience. And then you have to take a test. And it's like a 200 question test. It takes, I think, 4 hours. It's written on an 8th grade reading. It's on an 8th grade reading level. We have training classes there's 12 standards that you have to kind of understand, from biology to cabling to lightning protection, stuff like that. But the kicker is that to be a certified arborist, and this is why it's such a struggle in the commercial world, is you've got to take classes and stay up to date regularly, and you have to pay a membership, and it's like your any industry standard. And what happens is people don't have time to keep up with their CEUs. They have to have 30 in 3 years. So
but almost every profession requires that.
True, but if you got a chainsaw and a pickup truck, you can make just the same amount of money as somebody that's in the class. So I mean, it's gotten better, but. And again, that's a certified arborist. That arboriculture is different than urban forestry. Somebody that has that training, you can assume that they know how to take care of one tree at a time. But a little bit more know-how and vision and planning to be managing a population of trees. Mm-hmm. And not that it's rocket science. I mean, we can all do this, but as somebody wanting to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, can you fill in for us a bit? Ann?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Don't I?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm there to kind of support and help with the difficult ones, but.
Well, like for instance, what you were saying about writing up what we need and the specifications and stuff, that would be helpful if we had somebody who knows what they're doing to do that.
The reason why I asked is I think that might be something that I would consider.
Okay.
Oh.
It's all there too. I mean, there are best management practices. We have ANSI standards for how to plant and care for trees and how to prune them properly. A lot of cities have great management plans that you can, copy and adapt to meet your needs. So it's all pretty, it's not anything that should slow you down. I mean, the thing is adopting it and doing it. That's the hard part.
Well, how does Roxanne get started?
Well, Roxanne, why don't we, I don't want to, use up we can meet afterwards. Call me tomorrow or Monday and I can start sharing resources with you.
We can talk after this. We'll just stay on.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think the one site that we'll be able to use is the ISA site, because I think they've got information there on how to become a certified arborist. And that's isa-arbor.com. Because I just looked it up. Okay, that's probably
our plan now is for each of us to take on a certain section of the city.
Yeah, look around your area and see what you're willing to take on, and then report back each meeting if you've got a list, and I'll put them in the minutes.
Okay.
David
Yes.
Finkoff, do you want to partner with me and we could figure out, how to divvy it up or go together or whatever?
Sure, we could do that.
Okay.
I'll see you the next time you pass by with your dog.
Right. Okay.
So David Riggs, can you can you let Menards know that we're working on a plan, so they don't feel like we're.
Yeah, I can reach out to them. Not a problem.
Great.
And Anne, I have a question. What is our ideal time in the spring to plant? Is it March? Is it April?
March is the best time.
That's what I thought.
We need to be communicating, making our orders now. We're late making our orders.
Yeah, I'm not going to try and rush to do an order immediately, but this
Is April too late?
We should do that, or we should try to have a list. If we're going to present a list to Menards that they would have to find the trees and get them planted, we'd want to, I think, have that at least by the next meeting to give to them. Well, that's pushing it, actually.
Yeah, I would say you'd be better off aiming for the fall.
It's a better time to plant, unless we're going to plant conifers.
Yeah.
We should be planting deciduous trees in the fall, right, Anne?
Well, I know how to pick out sites, but I don't know how to pick out what trees would be best to choose. I mean, do we need to know?
No. You just need to find the sites.
I think it's helpful to put large, medium, or small, L, M, or S next to it. I don't know.
That would help too.
If there's overhead wires.
Yeah,
I'm looking for sites that'll take large shade trees.
Oh, okay.
First, I mean, that's my priority.
Yeah, that should be our primary goal.
But I'm just saying, I don't know which shade trees are the best. Which one should we choose?
Well, we don't have to worry. Don't think of barriers stopping identifying the sites. Just identify the sites where large shade trees could go.
I'll do that.
And we'll worry about what we're going to plant.
Meanwhile, I'd like to know where we go with it after that. How do we figure out?
Can I ask a question of David? I forgot that David Riggs was on here, and David is an ISA certified arborist as well, just like I am.
Actually, Anna, I let my certificate expire, so I am no longer a.
Oh no, you did.
That's what happens to all the good ones.
Can you get it renewed?
I could. I'd have to check with the safety service director to see what direction they wanted me to go. But yes, that's possible. But that's part of the reason that I did not renew, because we hadn't discussed that.
Well, David, I had two questions for you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot about the certified arborist, but in your conversations with Menards, would it be possible? If you said we wanted to start the process of drawing down, their tree bank for us or their collection of trees for us, would it be possible for us to get 20 pin oaks and 20 swamp white oaks, and then we can find homes for those or something? I mean, I'm throwing that out there.
Good.
Because they would want to know probably now, or at least by the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to go. Yes, I can do that. I'd have to go look and see. I think they're getting deliveries right now for their trees and plant material. That usually happens this time of year.
Yeah.
So let me check with them, and I can I'll get back with you next meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank you, David. And that might be maybe, David, if that's helpful for them to give us large quantities of one thing. And I know that that's always a concern about diversity, and I want to just put this out there. If you're having a planting program where you're planting every year, it's okay to do all hackberries one year and all pin oaks the next year and all Kentucky coffee trees. Okay, so we're all in agreement on that. Okay.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay. It just makes it easier for the supplier. Yes. Yeah. And it's easier for who's planting, so they're not getting confused. Like, oh my God, I gave Mrs. Miller a
It's also easier for maintenance, for that first year maintenance, if you have the same size tree and the same type tree.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Great. And we should really emphasize not getting alien trees, getting trees that are, if not native, or at least because that's so important for the rest of the wildlife. As we know, those of us who've been watching the Living Landscape series know.
Well, and that's why for David, that's why for David, if he could ask Menards for swamp white and pin oak, not because pin oaks, I think pin oak's an awesome tree, but it's easy to, I think for this first, we want to make it easy for Menards. We want to make it easy for ourselves. Pin oaks, they are adaptable, and So that's why I just kind of threw that out there. I just thought it was an easy
And
tree to start with.
swamp white oaks are the tree that I'm planning to plant in my tree.
Right. Well, choose 13 Avon as one of your planting sites.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, sneak that in there.
Okay, so let's move on to the other agenda items. There's a Tree City USA virtual conference that I put in the agenda as a reminder for people. Anne tells me that it's not easy to register for this event, but it's certainly something I think, just based on the agenda for it, it looked very interesting. Unfortunately, it's when I am busy and I can't get to it live, but I may try and register for it if it means I'll be able to get to see them later.
There are 2 more. They're Wednesdays. Who has anybody registered?
Yeah.
No one's. Oh, you registered.
Yeah.
Were you able to watch it yesterday?
Well, I don't know whether it worked. I mean, I tried to register, but I'm not sure that.
Well, you will know if you.
I didn't see it.
The discount code, so it's $30, but if you
Tree City
discount code Tree City, all one word, lower caps, City, you should be able to register. If some people have been having trouble with it, yesterday they were having a lot of trouble. If you do, when you're on that page, underneath that register button, there's some text, and it says, if you have trouble, email, and it's treecity@arborday.org. So do that, and I think they'll try to get back with you and get you a free registration. I think the problem it was that it's the people on the city's account could do it for free because their email addresses are the ones that are linked to the Tree City USA application.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it on the 17th and the
24th? Yeah, 17th.
Yeah, 17th and
24th. Yeah. See, part of the problem with me is that my phone went dead and I have no calendar. So I forgot that it was going on, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Okay, so that's something for us to have a look at independently. And then somebody raised the issue of the status, I think, of the various ordinance changes that have been proposed by Chris Fowle. With the minutes yesterday, I circulated the items that she is planning to include, I think, in Title 9, with some more definitions to do with noxious weeds and so on. And then in Title 1, talking about, or maybe it's adding it to Title 37. I don't really understand the language that's used there, but because it references Title 37 and the mitigation fee of $225 per tree, and then they're talking about a celebration tree program application fee of $100, and then a native and pollinator friendly program registration fee of $25. All seems remarkably cheap to me, but there you go. Then the other document I circulated, this is more by way of information to those of you who have lost track of the proposed changes to Title 37 that Chris Fowle had introduced, or was planning to introduce last year. And I believe they were sent to the law director for review, and I really don't know what the status is, but I thought I might as well send that out as well with the minutes from yesterday. So, Roxanne.
So in looking at title or Chapter 9, besides the fact that there's a typo in the definition of invasive, I don't
send any typos and any complaints to Chris Fowle, please.
Well, I would like to bring up my complaint to the group just to allow people to say, no, Rox, you're wrong, okay?
Yeah.
It says invasive plants, a plant species that is not native to Ohio, whose introduction causes or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm or harm to human health as determined by scientific studies. Mm-hmm. So Is everybody okay with that definition of native? Or I'm sorry, of invasive.
I think so. What's wrong with it?
There are some native species that are invasive.
Yeah, invasive plants are not always non-native.
Nope.
I understand the point on that one.
I was just wondering if I was the only one going,
Yeah.
Well, I believe it states elsewhere that anything that is on the state of Ohio's invasive species list is not eligible. And that would include native species that are.
okay. I don't.
I thought I just read that, but I don't have it up.
Yeah, that's in there. I saw that too.
Yeah, it's earlier in the document.
Okay, it's not in,
Yeah, that's under the noxious weed piece, I think, where it talks about noxious weeds include state-listed invasive plant species.
okay, so then it would be a noxious weed. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it would have to be on the state list, and I don't know if there are any native noxious weeds listed.
Yeah, I don't tend to think of a tree as a noxious weed, but there are trees that are invasives, for example.
Okay, but this is much broader than just trees. This was to do something else within the city.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at it through my tree lens, and I was just going, where does on a native invasive tree fall? I wouldn't have put it under noxious weed, and it doesn't fall under invasive plant.
Roxanne, I think
you have an example?
Tree of heaven.
That's not native, though.
It's not native.
No, but it's a tree and it's noxious.
Yeah, but we were asking for for a native tree that you would call invasive.
Right.
But there are certain trees that are natives that put in the wrong place would be considered an invasive.
Like for instance,
trying to think.
Calorie pear.
that's
Calorie, not exactly
not a
native, but
for sure.
yes. I mean, it probably would be
That's
considered.
definitely not native. These
But
are
certain,
native trees.
certain trees where roots would be problematic on certain banks, where you just wouldn't want to put a particular native on, someplace that could actually take out a waterway, for example.
Roxanne, I think for this list, you're going to find in urban forestry that there's very few places for trees than it needs to be. The right trees in the right places are fine, and we don't want to limit ourselves. Back in the day, people said you weren't allowed to plant silver maple because silver maples were planted on the streets. Well, there's a lot of really appropriate places where we could be planting silver maple, like, for example, in riparian areas or down in our floodplains or our naturalized parks, like the wetland area. I mean, they're a magnificent tree, a long-lived tree, a tree that doesn't require any maintenance. Because, they got into some clay tile pipes across America.
Yes, and then,
they got a bad name.
They got a bad rep.
Yeah, so I would try to, what I would do for that ordinance, and I'm glad it references, stick with the state invasive species list, because this is going to change with the climate. It's going to change with our knowledge. It's going to change with the nursery industry. Let the state take the lead on that. We just follow the industry standards or the state scientists.
I just didn't know what noxious weed. If they had said noxious plant, I would have been like, oh, okay, it's all inclusive. Sorry.
No, it's good. You're going to make an awesome tree commissioner.
I mean, like black walnut, for example. Sorry, people will probably disagree with me. That can be planted very incorrectly and take out every other species around it.
Yeah.
So to me, that could be a noxious plant. And that's a native.
I love black walnuts. What does it do?
Yes, but you don't want to go planting them in other places where they're going to take out their neighbors. And
there's already, so the city, I'm pretty sure the city of Athens already has a list of prohibited species in the public right of way.
Mhm.
And we typically try to discourage against that in the code because plants and are always changing and everything. I think it's something that belongs in your policies, not your code.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
yeah, so we wouldn't want to plant black walnut maybe down Main Street or down East State Street.
No.
There are certainly places where we could use it. Where it might be a really good tree. And in the woods, they grow in concert with a lot of different species. That's actually a little bit of their allelopathy is somewhat narrow. There's only a few groups of plants that are actually impacted by that.
Mhm.
Yeah. One thing that they do is when they lose their nuts, they are hazardous to your walk.
Tripping hazards are, we want to avoid tripping
Sweet
hazards for sure.
I don't want to pour water on this one, but I'm just looking at our list of large tree species, and Eucalyptus nigra is on there. So black walnuts, they're on our list. Trees that we can plant.
Correctly, fine.
Yeah, and it's a case. Again, it's this thing that Anne just pointed out. It's a case of choosing the right tree for the right site. I have no problems putting black walnuts in the city parks. Again, in the right places.
Yeah, they're gorgeous trees.
Actually, I think Roxanne has a really good point, and I think weed is inappropriate there. I think plant, from sitting from here, I haven't read it closely, but I think would be a good idea to suggest that we put plant in instead of weed, because weed's a value judgment, really.
Okay.
Well,
You don't want to discriminate against something.
I don't know where the words in quotations are coming from. I mean, it looks like they're trying to define that phrase "noxious weed," and it says any plant at that point.
I just wanted to clarify.
And the noxious weeds include the state-listed invasive plant species. So I'm not sure that there is any real issue with that.
Okay.
With that definition. And the invasive plants one, I can see an issue there, but again, it's a plant species. But it's here it says not native, and there could be plants that you might consider invasive.
Can I ask where you're seeing noxious weed? What page?
It's on if you're looking at the minutes I sent out from last night, it's on page 2 under definitions for 9.10.01. There's,
David, could you clarify, are all the yellow things that have been added? Is that the new stuff?
I assume it is. Peter might be able to comment on exactly what the style is for this, but I think everything highlighted in yellow is new stuff.
That is correct.
Okay.
Did you find it, Jim?
No.
Okay.
Not noxious weeds, but
let me share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about.
Another thing that I thought was really funny is that it says that an owner, leasing agent, tenant, or other, cannot have noxious weeds to grow more than 8 inches. So I'm like, goody, so we could have a whole bunch of noxious weeds that are less than 8 inches.
Yes. Well, that I know what the history of that was. That it used to be the case that if you let your grass grow more than 8 inches, the city would come and cut it and charge you for it. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think that the 8 inches is coming from. So this is the document that I'm reading it from, and it's to amend Title 9 General.
Yeah, I only had the 37 one, so I wasn't looking at the 9 one.
Ah, okay. Well, the other there should have been 2 documents I sent out last night. One is the minutes, and this particular page is just coming after the minutes.
Okay, I didn't scroll down enough.
Yeah,
but I think noxious weeds is an official designation.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of noxious weed lists for each state. So,
yeah. But the noxious weeds refer to deciduous plants. It doesn't refer to trees. That's why I'm like, why are they using it that way? But
sorry, are you talking about herbaceous?
No. Yeah. So, yeah, a weed would be herbaceous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to say it, Lee. It wouldn't be a tree, and so just weird.
Well, this isn't. This section is not particularly referring to trees.
No, but it should be inclusive of them.
How is it inclusive of them?
Well, it's talking about invasive plants, and that would include trees. And we found an example where.
I'm sorry. We're going around in circles on this. It's just that my point was this is not about trees per se, because it's about cutting of weeds. And I think the sense here was that they were talking about the maintenance of yards that,
I see what
regardless
you're saying,
of the trees, it's so it
the
is
chapter head. Sorry, forgive me. Yeah.
The thing that was hardest for me to understand, and I think you've done this for us on the past, is how to figure out the planting spaces. I mean, where is that section where it talks? And it's not new; it's old stuff. But I wish.
Go ahead.
I've always wanted to ask you how you do it.
How I do what?
Figure out how many trees belong in a space.
Oh.
Or you mean for a parking lot, basically?
Yeah.
For development?
That number, I think it's 1767 square feet. It comes about by thinking of the spacing in part of the city ordinances to do with, I think it's subdivisions, where it says the trees should be 30 feet apart. And so the presumption then is that, well, you've got a 30-foot circle. And that 30-foot circle gives you a certain area for one tree to occupy. And then if you want a 40% coverage, that tells you then how many trees per acre, or how many, or how big a space one tree should occupy. And that was where that 1767 came from. And then you take full 40% of any area, and you say that it's going to be covered in trees, and you look at that area that's going to be covered in trees, and you cover it in circles 30 feet diameter, and that's what effectively we're trying to do with the ordinance. And then there's a slight variation when it talks about impermeable surfaces, where we make an allowance in the sense that they're supposed to cut a 240 square foot hole in that impermeable area, which so it now becomes permeable, and then you add in the 15, whatever is left over, 1,527 square feet, and that's the impermeable surface that you're taking out with a tree. So the numbers all hang together eventually, and they have a justification, which is always good with these things.
Well, I'm glad to know that, because it definitely isn't easy reading.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
Well, I guess all I can do is just depend on you to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I can't.
Well, the history of this is that it replaced an ordinance that was very prescriptive about how many trees you had to plant along borders and in parking lots and so on, and we just kept having to give variances. And in the process of trying to work a better version of that ordinance, we discovered that small property owners were hit harder than large property owners were in terms of the number of trees per acre. And so that was where we then came up with this uniform formula, which means that even somebody who's just dealing with one apartment, basically, or a building that's going to be multiple apartments, I guess, on a single lot, has to plant. So
the goal would be to have a single tree within 40 40 feet of
no, the tree spacing is 30 feet.
30 feet.
Yeah, and if you many of the lots around here are of the order of about 5,100 square feet, and so that's three trees. And if you go up to dealing with acres of lots, then it's so many trees per acre, and I forget the number at the moment offhand that they need to plant to get the coverage that we're aiming for.
Well, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I can show you with a piece of paper probably better than I can.
That would be good.
Describe.
I would like to do that.
Yeah.
Someday when we have time.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Right. Are there any other questions, comments about these things? As I say, if you want, you can send your comments to me and I will forward them on to Chris File, or you can send them directly to her, and perhaps just copy me on them.
She did a lot of work. That's good.
Yeah. Peter, do you know what the status of all this is?
I do not at this point. We discussed it in committee again this year, and I thought it was going to come forward the following Monday, and that's when you and I both received that email saying that it was not coming to first read. So we're still waiting for it to come down. Okay,
fine. Thank you for the update.
So what does that mean, Peter? Does that mean after this was written, something else? It went through another process and is not finished. This is not the finished product.
That could, yeah. I believe that is going to be the. I think at this point there was from the Far East Side Neighborhood Association. There was a little bit of pushback, not about any of the tree stuff, but it was mostly about the pollinator gardens, which is something that that member Fall is trying to address in this legislation. Because technically right now, the issue and incident I think that drove it was there was a citizen that had a pollinator garden, and they got fined the fee for their grass being too tall, and then the city also came out and mowed it down.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so that was that kind of that situation really highlighted that there was a new format that people wanted to participate in, in their yards, and the city was not designed for it. City code is not designed to handle it right now. And it's a complaint-driven, situation. So if you have a neighbor that doesn't like the look of your pollinator garden, technically right now they could phone it in, and that's when the city's going to spring into action.
Oh boy.
I have a friend who had a situation like that, and so she and I went to see the code, the director of code enforcement. He was the interim one, and he said, as long as you tell the city what your intentions are, then they will basically leave you alone. But she had gotten some notices, and she hadn't been able to resolve it. But then after we went in together, it did seem to be the end of the problems. I mean, I went out a couple of times and saw what she was doing, and she was basically establishing a pollinator garden and keeping the area neat, but she was allowing things like Queen Anne's lace and some other plants that had arrived naturally. She didn't plant them, but she just eliminated the other plants, sort of edited what was there, and had a very attractive and very insect-friendly, pollinator-friendly area.
And so, and my understanding was the pushback was that there was fear that, say, a landlord could purchase the permit to have a pollinator garden, purchase a few items to imply that they were trying to do that. and then not mow their lawn for the rest of the season. And it would be cheaper than incurring the fine that you would get if you let your lawn grow too high.
I wonder if the complainant is now running against her as a candidate.
Anyway,
Alan Swank lives in the Far East Side.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other things we need to discuss on this particular item, or is there any other items we need to discuss other than the minutes of the last meeting? If not, let me share the minutes of the last meeting.
David, you want to do it?
Have I done it the right way? No, I haven't. I've got the wrong one, I think. Let me try again. I've got... oh no, I think I did pick the right one.
Yeah, that was right.
It was the right one. It didn't look right to me. It normally puts a border around it when I'm sharing it, but I can't see it at the moment. So you should be looking at the minutes of the January 14th meeting. I think I've got the list of attendees correct.
So was the recognition of John's service, was it just recognized in the minutes, or was there going to be anything else?
We just passed a motion, which doesn't actually say that. It just says a motion to thank John Katasky for his service on the Shade Tree Commission was passed unanimously. I need to put that into the minutes, I guess. That's interesting.
He just doesn't know it yet.
Nah.
Did you want me to write him an official note thanking him?
As you've been the official note writer for us, yes. I think that will be a very good thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you need a motion to approve?
Oh, I certainly do, yes.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Nancy. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lee. Are there any objections to approving the minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, we have minutes of our last meeting. Our next meeting is planned to be March the 11th, and as soon as I get those plans from David Riggs, I will forward them on to people, and I think we will presume that they will be on the agenda for that March meeting.
Okay.
And with that, we are